I'm sort of an assistant music leader, and I've been doing work at a PRU since last term, a pupil referral unit in Erdington, and that's been interesting because we started that in person when I started, so I'm really new to that, and we've been working with all the COVID safe guidelines and sort of learning how to sort of go about doing our work there. And as well as that, I'm also working for a project called Hidden Voices, which is with female carers and sort of helping to improve the carers' sort of self-esteem and their sense of well-being. So I kind of very briefly, I don't want to talk for too long about it, but there's been quite a kind of a interesting sort of circle kind of shift for me of when I first started. When we went into lockdown during COVID, we started up doing pre-recorded content. So with Hidden Voices, I was doing working collaboratively with other music leaders doing pre-recorded content. And then in sort of September last term just gone, we were doing some work, as I've just said, in the PRU in person, and then have kind of gone back to online, fully online again, live sessions this term in January. And I think the sort of interesting kind of thing for me has been, we've been sort of learning kind of trial and error, doing live online sessions last term as well. So with Switch, we did a little bit of in-person, and we're also doing live online sessions and kind of refine that process. And then this term we've gone back to fully online, and I'm kind of putting into practice some of the things we've learned. So very briefly, that's sort of what I've been up to, these 3 projects, and a kind of mixture of in-person and online, originally pre-recorded content, and now doing a lot of online sessions. So that's me very briefly.
Cool. Thanks, Alex. And my name's Liz. I work with Mac Makes Music. I began as an emerging music leader or assistant music leader at the beginning of lockdown. So I have very little experience, interestingly enough, like in person. So a lot of my experience is actually online. And since then I have developed into becoming a music leader, which is very exciting, for a couple projects that I do. I just want to say that this isn't a presentation. This is a discussion. So if you have anything to add to any of the points that me and Alex make, just like raise your hand, like Holly said, jump in. You know, we want to make this a nice discussion. Okay, so professional development, I think, is a very broad term. It could mean anything, you know. So kind of how me and Alex have taken it is there are 2 types of development. There's direct development into your professional work, and then there's indirect. So direct is things like training, where you're obviously learning about the work or the field that you are doing. The sessions themselves, you know, these are all directly impacting your practice, and I feel like we all are kind of aware that these are things, but one thing that isn't talked about as much is the indirect things. So for example, communication with peers and people that you work with, or you know, your own mental health, or whatever it is. Those also do impact your professional practice. And I just want to encourage everybody that if you have something that you are aware that indirectly impacts your own practice, please like pop that in the chat so we can look at those and revisit them later. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We're looking more at the indirect side today. And yeah, so Alex is going to talk about a couple things that he knows indirectly impact his practice.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Yeah, it's interesting because as when we were talking before this session, we were sort of talking about our experiences and coming up with some of the things we wanted to talk about. When we sort of coined these 2 areas of indirect and direct, or informal and formal, we felt like there was almost a lot of interesting conversation, a lot of interesting stuff that came out of the kind of more informal areas. And I think when we were talking about that, things that really kind of started to crop up for me was kind of this idea that we've called it our kind of artistic life, and our music leader life, or for me, my artistic life would be sort of the bands, or particularly one band that I play in quite a lot, and that's sort of my own thing. And then alongside it, all the music leader work that I do, and kind of this dialogue between the two, of how much kind of interplay do we have between our own artistic projects and our music leader work. And I sort of wondered if, I mean, I'm aware there's so many people here today, which is brilliant, and all from different kind of backgrounds, and I'm sure from such a sort of range of experience and different instruments, but how maybe during COVID has that changed the dynamic between our kind of artistic life and our music leader life? So I think, I mean, to just kind of give an example from my own kind of experience, as I've sort of mentioned, I'm a drum kit player primarily now, and during the pre work that we've been doing, so I work with I've sort of stepped up to being a co-music leader in the pre work, and we've been making quite a lot of weekly pre-recorded kind of content for our sessions that would have been in person this term. And we've kind of done a series of lessons that have involved sort of creating backing tracks or beats for the students to write music over. And for example, I've kind of the situation of COVID has caused me to embrace the technology more than I previously would have. If COVID hadn't have happened, as a kind of a drum kit player, I'm naturally, my tendency is to want to be on the real instrument, if I'm going to call it that. And we've kind of discovered some great kind of online web apps, such as there's a really great website called One Motion that do a really nice kind of simple drum machine. It looks great, and it's been really useful for me to visualize drum beats, to show participants, or to create beats. But that has kind of actually caused me to kind of embrace this technology more and get more kind of familiar with programming drum parts, which then has influenced my own music and my own band, or collaborating with other music leaders. I've just seen in the chat from Rob, what was the name of the drum machine? It's called One Motion. We can pop that in the chat for you, or at the end of the session, or at some point we can drop a few links that I found really useful with some of these apps. The One Motion has a really simple to use chord player as well, which plays chords, so that's been sort of a nice kind of parallel to the drum machine. And yeah, so there's been a really interesting dialogue there for me with technology, initially for music work, that's then kind of gone full circle and influenced my own artistic projects. So I just wondered if anyone has any thoughts on that, or these kind of themes. We got hands up for Mariana.
Hand up, yeah.
Yeah, hi. So hi, I'm Mariana. I'm a choral director, and I totally agree with Alex. I also had to reinvent a new way in which choirs could exist during this pandemic, and that included rehearsing and then performing in a virtual way. And I have, and in my case, my artistic side and my music leader side are actually the same, because I'm a conductor. So when I'm teaching, and that's my artistic side as well. And I found that when learning how to use software for putting together videos that people sent me to create these virtual performances, I actually started looking at the music in a different way. And I think that informs my conducting activity in general, because I became much more aware of the tiny details of simple things, like where are we going to place consonants, and how long is this rest going to be, or tuning, or very, very detailed things that sometimes when you are in a room with people, you just can't perceive or can't be aware of that. And I think that when we move to in-person activities, that like more sensible way of perceiving things will stay there. And actually, I had thought for a long time that I needed to learn how to use sound editing software and video editing software, and I never had the time, or I didn't really want to do it. I knew I had to, but I didn't want to. And now I have done it, and I think it's a good thing that when all this is over, it's going to be useful for my career and my personal development as well. So on the bright side, you kind of adapt to the new reality. And I think some of the things we've learned may stay. I think we didn't find a replacement for things we did before. We found a new thing. When we can go back to the things we did before, that'll be fantastic. But some of the things we've learned could develop into a whole new set of things. I mean, we have been talking about virtual education for a while, and we know there are many things that really can work very well virtually. So I think in a way, when in many years from now we'll look back and say, oh, that was good, that was cool that we could learn all these things. So yeah, it's my idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. I loved what you said about the fact that they kind of informed each other and they're kind of one and the same at the moment, and about how, and we're going to talk about this more later, but about how you're taking a lot of what you've learned in lockdown and you're going to bring it in person or in the real world, as we've been calling it, which is a very weird term, I feel, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Mariana. And Marcus, I believe you had your hand up.
Yeah, but I was just going to, I agree with a lot of what Mariana's saying about the sort of unforeseen benefits of online stuff has been really useful. I'm just wondering, because you were saying about rehearsing and then performing in the online world, and I'm just interested to know a bit more about what kind of performance outcomes you came up with.
Yeah, so in terms of performance, we've been producing all sorts of virtual choirs. So what I do is, and most choirs nowadays are doing, is you teach people the music and then you send them backing tracks and they record themselves singing. And it can be video and audio or only audio. And then you put them together and you make a song. And then when you have a series of songs, you make a concert. And then the videos, I mean, you can get really creative videos as well, so it doesn't need to be only people singing, but you take people's input in other images that you can include, or other short clips that can become part of the song. So yeah, I have found that although it takes some time for people to get used to the technical aspects of the recording, I've done it with children and with people like elderly people. They all find a way, and when they see the result, it really feels like a performance. And if you build it up, like, okay, we are going to premiere the video on that day and we're all going to watch it together, and you have like a Zoom party to watch the video, it really feels in a way like a concert. Of course it's not, it's not a replacement, but it does bring a lot of what performing with others brings. And also it has that sense of, okay, this is a final project that we can share with other people too. And you can share it with people from everywhere. And in that sense, it's really cheap because you don't need to find a venue, and people from all over the world can see it. So yeah, that's the performing aspect I've found, or I've been working on.
Great, thanks for that.
Thank you, Mariana and Marcus. That was a great discussion. I think goals are really important, especially with your own development as well as the project's development. Helen, you've got your hand up.
Hi there. Yeah, I just wanted to follow on from what Marianne was saying there, because I've also been involved with virtual choirs, so I feel your pain, Marianne. How complicated it can be sometimes. I just wondered if anyone, well, just to put it out there is a fantastic app called Virtual Choir Recorder. And I don't know if you've come across this, but it is really worth looking at. It's completely free, and it has changed a lot of what we've been doing in Derbyshire with our music centres. Virtual Choir Recorder is exactly what it says. It is something that Mariana would want to use potentially, because what you do is you rehearse your choir as normal, however you do that. You can put the backing tracks onto Virtual Choir Recorder. Everyone can then access them. And then when you want to record, you stick your headphones in, you listen to the track from Virtual Choir Recorder, and off you go, you sing. Now, this is not a videoing app, so it gets rid of all of the kind of safeguarding issues if you're working with younger people. And you can record audio. The good thing about this that's different is all you need to do when you finish your recording is press submit. You don't need to then take the file, attach it to something, upload it, email it, and all of that faffing about. All you do is click submit, and the whole thing goes to the choral director or the person who's set up that account. What we did, I've done this with several virtual choirs, and it's worked really well. And then we did an experiment to see whether it would work with instruments, and it does. So although it's called Virtual Choir Recorder, it's brilliant for any ensemble. We've had our flute choirs record with it. We've had clarinet groups as well. And they've all managed to put together beautiful recordings very simply because it's incredibly easy to use from the user end. So from that child end, it's simple. It's not quite as simple for the person at the other end who's got to put it all together, but it does kind of lock in together because it's an app. It's worth a look. It needs a bit of investigating, and they do have their own website with loads and loads of information on as well. So if you're interested, I just thought I'd put it out there because we've kind of moved away from the choirs and started doing it with bands now, and it's helped create a focus, I'd say, at the moment, while we just can't do anything for real. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to use that app. I'm going to very nicely borrow it and use it. Thank you so much. Just a couple things that are in the chat real quick. Amanda said that the current situation has made her realise that we focused a lot on the end result pre-COVID, and now it's more about the process, and I 100% agree with that. And I think that's a really good point. And then Rob has said that they've been focusing on the past year on running engaging online rehearsals instead of making performances, because they see real value in the final result of a video too, which I think is a really nice comment. And then Steve put he's heard of sound wrap is good for Zoom recording. So thank you for those comments.
Sound trap.
Sound trap.
Sound trap.
Brilliant. Sorry about that. Marcus, you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks. I was just going to ask Helen. So that that app sounds brilliant. I'm definitely going to be looking into that for instruments rather than choirs. But if you say it works and it's a good interface for young people, that's really useful. I'm wondering about when it gets to the other end, if you're working with a group that aren't necessarily all that proficient, what does the other end look like? Is it just like, you know, you need a music producer head to just kind of shape it all up in a separate piece of software, or what does it look like?
So as it comes into you, what you do is when you set up your backing track for the children or people to play to, we've done ours with metronomes, so it's quite sort of solid, what we're trying to get them to do. Trying, I say, but when it comes to you, what we found is actually it lines up pretty well. So it will come to you as an email, and then you download the track, and you can download it straight into something like GarageBand, Audacity, anything like that. The person I worked with used Logic. I don't understand Logic. I do GarageBand, but it just goes into there, and they should line up because the app has them all recorded at exactly the same time, because the track, they're all following the track and it's all identical lengths. Now, occasionally you may need to do a little bit of nudging, but what we have found is that we've had some people that are not music producers. They are not people who are fully proficient, but they have managed to nudge things enough to make it work. And what's wonderful is watching the children's faces when they hear that recording back. We've had kids for the first time hear themselves playing with their flute group in 9-10 months or whatever it is, and suddenly they're there playing together, and it's not 100% perfect, but it's just amazing to hear it. What we've then done is sometimes use those recordings for the rehearsals. So they're not just rehearsing to a backing track, they're rehearsing to themselves.
To themselves, yeah.
And then it feels like they're actually playing together. So it's, yeah, like I say, it takes a bit of fiddling around, but you know, if you need any sort of help with that, I know I've got a PDF on how to use it, but there is plenty of stuff on their website. I don't work for them, by the way. I don't work for Virtual Choir Recorder. And we keep shortening to VCR, and a VCR is something different to a person of my age. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Helen.
No problem.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Jamelia, you have your hand raised. Sorry, I said your name wrong. It's Jamila. I just realised that. Just processed.
I get that name a lot.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'm not really a music leader yet. Maybe one day, but I've been doing a lot of shadowing, and I've been working on the Musical Connection. I don't know if you've heard of Musical Connections, the project. So we used to, before lockdown, the main thing we used to do was we'd split up into groups, 4 groups, then go to 4 rehearsal rooms and practice, write a song, practice it, and then perform it for each other at the end of the session. So because of lockdown now, what we do is we've been using Zoom, and we write, instead of doing it in loads of groups, we just write one song as one group, and we have to like separate for 10 minutes at a time to go and think of some lyrics separately, and then we come back together and share the lyrics to create the song and put it all together. But it's not really about the end result, it's more about just writing a song together, just that activity. Oh, that's it. Thanks.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, it's very interesting, just this thing of the end result versus the process, and sort of, yeah, it's just an interesting dialogue. And I sort of remembered, Helen, you mentioned, you know, the software you're using that can help get an end result, but then also discovering the sort of for example, lyric writing. You know, I've found with that's worked quite well in some projects. The lyric writing over the technology, again, is a bit more about the process. So there's definitely a shift, I think, maybe with the end result versus the process. Mariana, when you also mentioned, I just wanted to come back, you mentioned at one point about having more time, and I think at the moment, maybe because people aren't traveling obviously to where we work or what we're doing, and the situation has kind of brought up the potential maybe for a bit more time to get your head around some of this kind of technology, or to get your head around different things that maybe we previously didn't. I've certainly experienced that, and I just wondered if anyone had any thoughts on that, on the idea of time, or for example, I've had more time to kind of chat with music leaders that I work with and kind of talk about our things we're doing, whether it's our own music or the work we're doing. Just wonder if there's any thoughts on time.
Steve, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks. There's been so many surveys to complete and meetings to attend on Zoom, some of which I found really good for my reflective practice. I was involved with a bit of research. It was called Active Ingredients. University College London, somebody there was trying to map out what are the active ingredients for effective arts in health and social care. And she dropped this exhaustive list of what are you doing regards this and regards that and regards this. Huge. It was quite exhausting to go through, but it was really good actually. It forms quite a good checklist for things that I could include. So there's been a lot of that, a lot of time for reflective. That's not the only example. That's not the only example either, but I think there's been a lot of time for that. Yeah, partaking in other people's research focus groups helps you reflect on your own practice. I don't know if anyone else has found that.
Yeah, I found that, and I think it's a really good point, reflective practice, especially now in COVID times, because we have more time, like Alex and Mariana was saying. Our reflective practice has kind of developed, hasn't it? And it's kind of changed and progressed. And I wonder how our reflective practice has changed. If anyone would like to come in about how their reflective practice has developed over this time. Mariana.
Yeah, if no one else wants to jump in. Something very silly, but I found that because rehearsals happen in the computer and you have like your rehearsal plan on the computer, when the rehearsal finishes, just writing down a reflective diary or filling in a form or something, it's much easier than before. If you had to come back from the rehearsal, perhaps by the time you got home, you started doing something else, and then the next day you kind of forgot what happened. And I feel that I'm a bit like obsessed with Excel sheets and things like that. I like using those things, but I find that for virtual rehearsals, it's much simpler because you just have everything there, and it's quicker and easy to access everything even during the rehearsal. So I think I'll probably try and bring my computer to rehearsals in the future, just to have that kind of and filling the forms right after the rehearsal happens. And I think it's just a fresher reflective diary because you have it just there.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. I always do reflective diaries straight away, or try to anyway. Because I also find that when you allow something to sit for a while, your opinion can change, and what you think of the session and how you feel the session went can change slowly if you wait and allow it to sink in. Whereas if you do it straight away, you're getting your initial reaction, which I think is really good. Does anyone else want to come in on that point? Leon?
Yeah, I think I got up and running about the 25th of March last year. I was really teaching online. I mean, it took a week to get the safeguarding sorted, but I stopped on the 16th of March because I could see it was going to happen. I find I'm having to... I've done a lot of teaching online, and I'm primarily teaching violin and a bit of cello. I've found that I've got access to all the resources I need on the computer. I've had to teach things in a different way, and I find students are already often ready with their instrument, warmed up, tuned up. Some of them get a lot more out of an online lesson. And if I need to just demonstrate something on a score, I can pull up the music notation software and bang something in there. I've got all the audio, any backing tracks and things I need here. I can share those. You have a lot more resources at your fingertips. I use a lot of PDFs of things, and so I can give examples, I can point to things. I use the whiteboard feature a lot because you can just quickly draw a stave and put some notes in and do musical examples. And I think because of the safeguarding, parents are in the vicinity, and if they're primary school kids, parents tend to sit with them. I've had a lot more communication with parents, and parents have been much more involved than usual. And I think some children make much better progress with online lessons. I think some will carry on online. In fact, I had a couple of siblings who moved away during lockdown. Then the mum said, well, we can carry on having lessons with you. So I think there's a lot of benefits, and I like the fact that when the lesson's over, you switch it off, and there's none of that chat on the doorstep and them hanging around for ages. You know, the ones that come to the house. So I've really found it a big benefit. I think I have to take, my iPod and speaker and stuff into school with me, and if I want to use backing tracks and stuff, which is fine in a way, but if you've got a big group, it's not loud enough. And I do use a lot of PowerPoint with wider ops, so I tend to use, in schools, the PowerPoint with all the audio embedded in it for the first term of whole class. But I can use that online, and so, in fact, some schools have got me beaming lessons into school at the moment for groups. Some children at home, some are in school, and we can still do the group lessons, but you have to work. The thing about them all playing at the same time is different. You have to find ways around all of that, but I've certainly learned a lot, and there's lots of other things I've done not related to the teaching, which I wouldn't have had the chance to. For instance, just to give it one, I used to be an orchestral player, then I became a classroom teacher, and now I teach instrumental because I prefer it. But I'm able to work with colleagues in other countries, and I have a once a week thing with a whole bunch of colleagues all around the world. Main guys based in Toronto, and we can coordinate performances. Video performance. I've had to learn to use, Final Cut Pro, GarageBand, all that stuff. And I think it's interesting. Normally, we'd have to sort of all go to Toronto or somewhere and meet up and spend a lot of money and have a week there. And we've just been doing it every week. It's fantastic. So, there's a lot of benefits. And I think I'm going to carry on teaching blended, some online, some in person once it comes back. From next week, it's a mixture now. So my timetable's all over the place, and I think the summer term's going to be frantic because I'm catching up all the stuff I couldn't do this term. So I've got doubling up on wider ups, but it's yeah, I like the online teaching for a lot of them, and actually for the children it makes them much more independent. They have to be able to tune their instruments themselves, and you know, you can't do any of the limited amount of hands-on that you might do. You have to find ways of demonstrating and explaining, which from a safeguarding point of view is a real good CPD point, because it's very easy as an instrumental teacher to sort of go, well, just do this, you know, you gotta, do you mind if I just show you where to put your hand or something like that? And we haven't got that, so we have to find, you know, different ways of explaining things. And I could go on and on and on, but you know, I think I'm enjoying it.
You raised some really good points. I think that with COVID particularly, a lot of people focus on the negatives, and there are a lot of negatives, don't get me wrong. And, you know, it has been a learning curve, but as you said, there are so many positives that come out of this. And I really like how you're going to be taking a lot of what you've done in COVID and a lot of the online learning and taking it forward. And I really like that. So thank you, Leon. Marcus, you had your hand up for a little bit. I don't know if you wanted to drop something in.
Yeah, no, I sort of put it down again because I was conscious that I've said a few things and I thought other people might want to say.
All.
But yeah, no, some great points from Leon there. I'm wondering what with your group, with the guys in Toronto, what do you use to? Are you using a very low latency in actual playing together, or? No?
Well, we have a meeting once a week, and there's people all over Europe, North America. When he does the people in Australia and Korea, he does a later one because that's middle of the night for us. It's the thing we have in common is we all play viola d'amore, which is a strange Baroque instrument with sympathetic strings, and you hold it like a violin. It's got 7 strings or 6 on the top and sympathetics as well. So because I used to do a lot of period instrument orchestras, that's something that, and it comes up occasionally in things like the St. John Passion, which I play that instrument. We've been able to have presentations from various colleagues around the world who are specialists. When we record, we don't do it all together, so we don't perform together in the sessions. We'll perform bits of stuff for each other, but we've done some group videos where we've done various pieces where we've put the videos together, and there's a guy in Australia who's whiz with Final Cut, and they've I think we've learned a lot about how well that works. And recently we've been experimenting with multi-tracking stuff in GarageBand to just get some basic recordings of some very obscure repertoire from the 18th century, and learning how to use mixing properly to get the sound right, and things like the EQ, just learning to use all that stuff. I mean, I've had to do some instructional videos for students who couldn't come online using Final Cut, and that's been I've learned a lot from doing that. But we don't perform live together.
Yeah,
latency's a problem. Even Jam Kazam's a problem, and there's actually somebody in Canada who's come up with a new system. And also, there's an issue with there's still depending on where you are in the world and how far you are from your local data center or server, or whatever, the latency is still a big issue. And I don't know if we're going to get around that. We tend to record stuff during the week and send each other GarageBand files and collaborate that way. But we can get together and we can play each other stuff that we've been working on and discuss it and help each other out, and explore the repertoire. It's very obscure, but
Thanks for that. I was also just wondering, I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like making the transition from in-person to online remote stuff sort of quite suddenly, that I felt like I was just kind of making it up as I was going along and kind of scrabbling for bits of information. And I don't know whether, obviously a lot of us have got all our little tips and tricks that are specific to us with how we've gone about online group leading. But a year on, are there any kind of more official kind of, we're talking about professional development, is there a kind of a toolkit that somebody's produced to say this is how you teach a killer online group music session? Or is it, I'm sure people have tried, but I don't know what's out there, because I feel like I've just been kind of scrabbling to kind of piece stuff together.
Yeah.
Shown.
Holly, there's loads of different resources on Mac, isn't there, that talk about those kinds of things. I don't know if you could share some of those stuff.
Yeah, we can have a look. I think they're probably more Yeah, I think there might be some other stuff within like Music Mark and some of the musicians union and other places that might have some helpful stuff about specifically sort of hosting sessions. Ours might be more sort of examples of, as opposed to like hints and tips for the actual session, but we can have a look definitely. I know I've sort of looked at NIMAS have a lot of information on their website about remote delivery. I mean, they've been doing remote delivery for yonks pre-COVID because they're such a rural setting up in the northwest, and they've done a lot of seminars and sessions as well as producing toolkits about that. So that might be of help as well, and we can again share some links after. I'm conscious that Ruben, you've had your hand up for a little while, and then Shona, you put your hand up as well. So maybe we'll head over to Ruben for a bit.
Hi. So I'm really excited actually to see that people have been able to like find stuff where they can rehearse in person, like not in person, but like online together. I'm looking forward to like trying that stuff out. We went about it in a slightly different way. So I work with Rob with Misfits Music, and the way that we've gone about this is that we run instrumental group work, and the way that we kind of prepare the music is by ability. So you can be any ability and there will always be parts for you. And basically we transitioned to using Zoom with Sibelius. So what we were able to do was kind of manipulate scores and like mixes and stuff, select staves and instrument parts and all of those bits and pieces, and kind of run through music like that. And I was wondering if anybody had kind of any other different software solutions for like rehearsing their music groups. Like how are your approaches different to ours? I'm seeing there's loads of different ideas, but has anybody else got any kind of like other bits of software that they recommend?
Helen has just waved, and then we'll go over to Shona because I'm aware that you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, Ruben, I don't know if you've come across Sound Slice, but Sound Slice is great. If you're already using Sibelius, it is completely compatible. What it does is create a rehearsable score, I'd say. Now, I haven't set this up myself. This is something that somebody who runs the choir I'm in has done, and it is just totally checked. We discovered it 2 weeks ago, and we were like, why did we not find this months ago? Because it would have helped us so much. And what it does is it allows the person using it to pull out their part and just listen to their part, slow it down, speed it up, play it with a backing track, play it with another part. It basically gives you all the options within what you've got. That is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So as a choir person, I can go on and I can just listen to the alto part. I can slow it right down if I need to. I can just put the piano part back in if I want to. Then I can just click a button and the whole choir reappear. You can click another button and it will only show the alto part like music, not the whole score, just that one line. Oh, it's all that sort of thing. But it's called Sound Slice. I'm not sure if it's free, but I don't think it's like a vast amount of money. But I'll tell you what, whatever it is, it's worth it because it's transformed what we're doing. In our choir, we've got a lot of people who are, how would you describe it? The non-musician choir attenders, if you know what I mean. Yeah. The ones who follow and listen, but they don't really read. So for them, it's been absolutely perfect. It's meant they can go away and learn their part properly. So when they come back, when we finally get back together, we should know what we're doing. So I hope that's helpful.
No, that's really good. Like, I think this looks like what we've been trying to aim for. I've got another screen up there. One thing that I'll leave people with is that if you do use Sibelius or something like that, Note Performer is an amazing piece of software, which is, oh my God, it blew my mind. Basically, it's like a synthesizer which approximates what a real musician would play through Sibelius. Honestly, just check it out. If you do use scores a lot and try and bounce stuff for rehearsals, that's a really good bit of software. I'll leave you now.
Sorry, what was that called, Ruben?
It's called Note Performer. It looks like it's made by one guy, and so the website looks a little janky, but like honestly, I'll write it I'll put a link in the chat.
So is it a plugin for Sibelius, or is it
Yeah,
a separate?
It's like an audio device for your computer. So rather, it's more like a synth that you can't manipulate, but it's like it uses algorithms to play articulations and glissandos and swells and stuff which a musician would do, and it uses AI to kind of approximate how a musician would do that. I've created orchestral scores which sound amazing, not because of me, because of the plugin, but you know, and it just takes something like your general MIDI sounds and just it's incredible. I can't recommend it enough.
Thank you.
Really interesting, this theme of being able to kind of manipulate audio in different ways that you can't if you're not using technology, and sort of, as Helen was saying as well, being able to, you know, take bits out, just listen to things isolated. Sometimes makes me think I wish I had some of that in the past when I was trying to learn things from a CD. So yeah, we had planned that there was the option of doing some breakout rooms, but I didn't want to cut off any good conversation. We're just looking at the time, wondering if that would be something that everyone will be interested in doing, splitting into a couple of different groups, breakout rooms.
Yeah, Marcus, you've just raised a good point. That Shona had her hand up. So if we go to Shona, would everyone be happy to then break out? Because I know, Steve, you had your hand up just then. But would it be all right if we then went to breakout rooms? Because we have a few more questions that I think are really interesting. Is that all right with everyone?
Sorry, Shona, I didn't see that.
Hey, that's okay. I was just a couple of things. I was just thinking about this whole challenge of Zoom and how we're all at different levels with it. I've really enjoyed the fact that we've had to be so creative in our facilitation, that it's been really challenging, but I feel like it's been a really good shake up for everybody. Like, just like how we approach things, even in the groups that we lead, it's allowed other people to come forward, which in the room they might feel a little bit shy, or I've found that that's really helped switch some of the dynamics in the groups as well. I just think it's been a really interesting time for us to evaluate our groups and what we do within them as well. And also on the development side, that what we've been discussing, I feel like this has been like such an important time for my own development. I've had the time to join things like this, and I don't know. I know, Steve, you're part of the Soundcastle community, but it's basically a community where people can just go and ask questions and join events or groups, or just having somewhere like that has been so important, and that's all come through the COVID and having, you know, for what's happened in the last year. I'll pop it in the chat, but if anyone wants to come and have a look, there's some really interesting conversations going on, and it's just nice to feel like you're not alone, even though we're in these little Zoom boxes. It's nice to have somewhere to just join up like this and just have a general chat about stuff. Feels really welcoming, and yeah, that's all I was going to say, really.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much, Shona. Please pop that in the chat. I'd love to have a look at it. And yeah, I think well-being has a massive impact on your own development. And even though, you know, it's been a difficult time, it's been really valuable, I think, for all of us to develop our own practice and just develop personally, and to figure out, you know, what we like, what we don't like, what our needs are, those kinds of things. So thank you so much, Shona. If everything's okay, we're going to go into breakout rooms, if everyone's cool with that. Alex, you can explain if you like. I don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So we've kind of come up with two very kind of broad themes or questions that we thought we could just assign one to each group, and me and Liz will go one in each group, and sort of just discuss around there and see what comes of it, and then sort of come back at the end after sort of 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I shall send everybody to breakout rooms now.
I'm just going to start with our group, if that's okay, Alex. We were talking about what we've learnt and what we've we're going to take forward from lockdown. That how it's very difficult to kind of manage your work and home kind of life, and to juggle your time, because well-being is really important. And it's been very difficult for me anyway to manage my well-being online. I think that that's been very difficult, and I was just wondering if anyone had anything to add on that.
I'll come in if that's okay. Sorry, we were talking just in our breakout room about fast Wi-Fi, and the Highlands of Scotland do not have it. So actually my camera is off a lot in Zoom meetings to help with the stability of the internet. But anyway, well-being and things, and I have found in my work it's very lonely, and a lot of it is independent working as a freelancer. But since Christmas, we have a load of administrators, singers, performers, whatever, have got together on a Monday morning and a Thursday morning and done a sort of work along Zoom. And you're all on Zoom, you're not talking, we're all muted, you can have your cameras on and off, but just that focus and feeling like you're in a room of people kind of there supporting you. We then have a coffee break at halfway point, which is 20 minutes. And then at the end, each session, someone shares a little bonus sort of hint and tip. And actually that has brought a lot of focus and helped stress levels, anxiety levels, because there's a portal there for you to share things off with each other and things and help each other out. So that sort of feeling like you're part of a community when actually it can be very lonely in the work sense has been great.
Yeah, I really like that. That's I think that that's something that I'd never even thought of that, you know? Now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, that's actually a really good idea. Jamila, you had your hand up for a little bit, and then we're going to go to Gareth, if that's okay.
I was just going to mention, I'm not sure if it's exactly about well-being, but in the Musical Connections group where we write songs and everything, there is one lady who's in a wheelchair. So she was saying that if it wasn't for lockdown and everything, she finds it so hard to get to the sessions, and she was so happy that now we've started doing online sessions, because it's so much easier for her to attend and everything. And she was saying she hopes that when all this is over, we're going to keep doing online sessions, just so, because she was just really happy about that.
I'm in a wheelchair myself, and I've found it so easier to access sessions because you don't have to worry about things being accessible. You don't have to worry about things like stairs, you know, all that boring stuff. So I think it's really a talking point, isn't it, that how accessible Zoom is to a wide variety of people who may not be able to access it otherwise. Gareth, you had your hand up for a little bit.
Real quick anecdotes and stories have really got me through it. I've got a stepson, and the point of the story is you've got to realise he used to be a locksmith, okay, but now he runs a factory. And he was driving my stepson. He's got a couple of kids, and he's driving the youngest one to school. And his stepson and his son said to him, "Dad, you know, I got to go to school online because you and Mum are key workers." Because my stepson's wife, she works for the NHS, and I think you probably know where this is going. And he goes, "Yeah, but Donnie, I'm not a key worker. I work in the factory, don't I?" He goes, "No, Dad, no, you're always working with keys." Because he always just remembers Nathan being the locksmith. And, you know, that's it. These 4-year-old kids, if they can get me through it, then, yeah, so that's that. Anecdotes have been good.
I love that. Sorry, I'm a massive fan of puns. So, you know, that's amazing. Thank you for that. I think that humor is definitely something that we need during this time. I don't know if anyone else had their hand up, but Alex or Steve, you did.
Yeah, it's sort of back to well-being, but I've found being a member of lots of different organisations. They all have their own meetups. I mean, like this one, which was really good. I mean, we know when there's little else at the moment. I've got scraps of work, but it's just something to look forward to, and it's just adds a bit of structure to the day. Otherwise, you know, because living alone, I would not be talking. I would not be using my voice. And I found that I'm supposed to be a singer. My voice was getting weaker just through not using it, you know. That's so useful. And I was saying that Shona, we both, for example, do the Sandcastle chat every Wednesday, and it's a very informal one. No topic specified, but it's a chance for community musicians just to have a natter, like we're doing now.
Yeah, just talking about stuff feels really good. It feels really good when you haven't seen many people outside your own family or outside your own house. Shona, you had your hand up.
I was just going to talking about well-being and looking after ourselves as facilitators, because obviously we need to do that to give the best that we possibly can anyway. And I was thinking about Helen's point in our small group about this trying to get from one place to the other and actually how you miss that. I think it's so important to factor that into your day at home as well, and just like leave space in between and go out and get some fresh air and get a cup of tea and just be really supportive, like really mindful of yourself, and not just have like, right, I finished this at 2 and then I've got to go to this at 2, and just like leave space for yourself, because otherwise you just get burnt out just as easily as you do outside traveling, trying to make it from one thing to another, which I find really stressful. So yeah, you do have to like factor that in for yourself as well.
I agree. I definitely agree. I mean, yesterday I did 6 hours straight, and several meetings sort of overran, so the gap I put in didn't happen, and I just had to keep going and going and going from one to the other. By the time I got to the end of the day, I was just like completely frazzled and not even able to contribute properly. I think one of the things I've done, I will share this with you because not many people know this about me, and none of you actually know me, so it's fine because you'll keep it a secret. I took up singing lessons during lockdown. So although I've been I'm a musician and I'm a piano player and I've accompanied lots of singers and all that kind of stuff, and I've done lots of singing in choirs and things like all my life, but I've never actually had proper lessons. And I thought, no, this is the moment. This is when I'm going to do it. So I've been having singing lessons throughout lockdown for the past year, and I took and passed and got a merit in my grade 5 musical theatre exam, so which is a hilarious thing to be doing when you're 48, believe me. But it's
not at all. That's not ridiculous at all.
That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Well done.
I'm working on the grade 7 now. I've been told I've got to go on to the next one. I'm like flipping out.
Yes, you got this. What exams are you doing?
I'm doing London College of Music, and they do recorded exams. So you can record them in your own time. You put your costume on and stand in front of your camera and perform to a backing track. And then you have to explain your song choice and your program and so on, and answer lots of questions, which was a hilarious experience. I have to say, I've not done a music exam for a very long time. But you still get the same feeling of waiting for that exam result. God, when's the email coming?
That's amazing. That's amazing. A massive well done to you. And it's also for getting the confidence just to do music, like to do singing lessons. That's a massive thing as well.
It's been really good for me. It's been really, really good for me. And like Steve was saying about missing singing, I haven't done as much singing as I would normally be doing anyway in classrooms or anything else. And you do start to lose what you've got of your voice. So it's been a good excuse to make me do plenty of singing. So anyway, thank you ever so much. I'm going to have to go, so I've got to go and pick up my daughter. But I will see you next week, those of you coming next week.
Thanks so much, Helen.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Leon, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I was going to say, doing exams as an adult is a very sobering experience when you normally put your own students through them. Because I teach mixed violin and cello groups, and I didn't play cello, I had to get myself up to speed on cello. I think I started learning about 3 years ago, and I've done several exams, and it's very instructive. It's very similar to the other instruments I play, but there are some big differences in well, it's not like upper strings, but it's a really good thing to do. I mean, for me, it's easier than singing. I couldn't imagine doing because my voice is terrible, but I didn't start that until I was perhaps 55, or 54, something like that. So you can do things when you're older, and it takes a bit more effort, but it's worth it. And very,
cool.
useful to do the exams. If you're putting your kids through, your students through exams, it's very instructive. Yeah.
So have you been doing some? Have you taken some, Liam?
Yeah, well, I picked up the cello. I took it home in July, and then I did grade 5 in the autumn because it's related. So you can, I got myself through it. I did grade 7 the summer after, and then I had a couple of years off. But I've been having online lessons. I would never get to have regular cello lessons normally, because the person I've been studying with is in Derby, and I'm in Peterborough. So I've been able to have online regular lessons, which I wouldn't do otherwise under lockdown. So I'm having much more regular lessons this year. I did grade 8 last autumn, and but that's it was great to do, and I think that's another of those opportunities I wouldn't have had because I've done lessons with people before at a distance. You have to travel a long way. You're not in the mood for the lesson when you get there. You don't play your best. You've got to travel the way home. If it's an hour and a half away, and I can just do it from home. It's one of those things I hadn't thought of doing before. But it works really well. And that is CPD for me, because I do have to teach beginner cellists. So what happened with my whole class groups, one term, 3 cellists wanted to continue. So I thought, well, I can't play the cello, but I've got to learn because I've got to teach them. I can get them started, but I've got to do the follow on. And so we've not got enough cello teachers here, so I do start a few off, and then I try to send them to proper cellists. But I don't want to give them bad habits to start off with. So. And actually, I'm playing it quite a bit, multi-track recordings. I'm doing quite a lot of baroque bass lines on cello, because there's nobody else in the group that plays the lower strings. So it's fun. I enjoy it.
I quite like the point you raised about it. It's quite insightful to see what your students are going through when you put them through. Well, not put them through, but when you put them forward for exams and stuff. And I think that's a really nice thing, is to realise kind of what the participants or what the students are doing and what you are asking them to do. I think that's a really valuable thing that we can, take from this lockdown into the future. Shona, you've just put something in the chat. Something as a participant so useful in reminding us what it's like to be on the other side. 100%. Do you want to expand on that?
Exactly what you've just said, Liz.
Yeah.
That's what
great minds. But yeah, I do think that it's a very valuable thing in order to kind of deliver the best that you can, is to see kind of, well, what helped me doing this, so what's going to help them do it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, thank you so much, Leon. Does anyone else want to come in?
I totally agree as well on that point of switching around the roles. I've done a similar thing before, sort of gone back to having sort of lessons on my instrument, and then I totally can see what you say, Leon. With sometimes I've gone to lessons, I'm not playing so well there, and for the teacher, and it makes me be able to empathise more with people I work with, definitely.
Thing that Anne Jones, one of our team, does, and each week she's been working with young people. She they set her challenges and she sets them challenges, and it's often like, go away and learn a rap or something for Anne, something out of her comfort
I believe
zone.
Anne's learning a TikTok dance.
That's it. Yeah, and if you were with us last week, I think Anne mentioned it, but that's such a nice idea of being like in the same position. I don't know this, you don't know that, let's go away and see how we both get on, and how did you find it, and sharing that and being on that level playing field. You kind of go from being the professional musician to musicians equally.
Just to expand on that, I think there's a massive stereotype about teachers being the all-knowing giant, and then the students or participants being, nothing, I know everything. And I think that we do have to break that down, and a way of kind of I guess in terms of development and being able to kind of connect more with your students or participants is about thinking, well, what have I learned today from them, and what have they learned from me, and having that back and forth between for both of you to learn, because you're both growing. It's a journey, you know what I mean? And I think that it's very valuable to do that. Yeah, does anyone else want to jump in at this point with any other points?
Something as well is can be really useful, like when a participant or student teaches a leader or teacher, if they teach them something, that is really like helps them learn in different ways, sort of obviously the musical side of it, but just as a kind of for social sort of skills or that kind of area as well. There was it has made me think of in a pupil referral unit, one student was sort of learning a bass line from a track we were listening to, and then his teacher, who I think teaches him like maths, was like, oh, what's that? And then I said, oh, well, why don't you could show him what we're playing? And I think there was an initial kind of, oh, me show the teacher what we were just doing, and it was a really nice moment and a really nice process for him to be able to, and also know that you can sort of learn that idea better by showing someone what you're doing and bringing them into it as well.
Yeah, 1000%. It is really valuable and something that I think I'm going to be doing more of after speaking about it today. Alex, your group, what was your group talking about, and what were some of the points raised that we could maybe discuss?
Yeah, there were some interesting points. We got a bit deep at one point talking about musicians are always the kind of we're adaptable and flexible. So musicians have often, and artists have, I think, we've always been flexible to the situation that we're in, and then we were sort of talking about that in this time. So like, I try to remember who, I think Marcus said, he was like, well, we've always been doing this, adapting to our situations. So this is another example where musicians have just adapted to the situation. And then that kind of flowed on to the thing of some anxieties going back to in person for some people, whether it's leaders or students. I think particularly sort of for some participants, there will be some sort of anxieties for transitioning back, because I think, as we found out today as well, there have been so many kind of benefits and learning opportunities for the leaders, teachers, and for participants. So, and then another really interesting point that Ruben made was that he took his project more seriously since COVID. Like they expanded a lot, so it's sort of, there was a lot of opportunities for him during the time. And yeah, I said to him, it sounds like he sort of was really sort of saying, yeah, they took it more seriously and also embraced more elements of some business side of what they were doing, and had to take a bit more responsibility themselves, and for safeguarding, he said, that was always left to other people, and he would just do the music, but he's had to consider other things. And so expansion and growth was definitely a theme.
Yeah, 100%. Does anyone have anything to add about what Alex was just saying?
We were talking about teaching each other things and learning new things. Something that I thought of was when we were preparing for this session, we were chatting about sort of mentoring and learning from peers, and how now is a really nice time to sort of quite easily drop into each other's sessions and visit and see and take part and join in, and how valuable that experience is. And that kind of led on to a conversation about sort of comparison and how we compare and contrast each other's approach, because for our team it's very, the previous experience is just massive. We've got sort of Anne, who's a violinist, and she's done folk violinist, and then we've got other people who are music production, beat making is their main thing, and there's such a breadth. So we spoke about sort of, you can't necessarily go in and watch somebody and think that's how I should be working, but how, what helps and hinders. I don't know if Liz and Alex, you wanted to add on that.
I can add to that. Basically, because I started early lockdown in my whole music leader kind of journey, I found it very difficult to split up healthy from unhealthy comparison, because you get, and I don't know if anyone wants to add anything on this or if they have any opinions on it, but when it comes to comparison, it's very easy to compare yourself negatively and to go, well, I'm not as good as them. Whereas I feel and if I was to speak to myself at the beginning of lockdown, what I would be saying to myself is, well, you should actually take that inspiration to better yourself, And I just was wondering if anyone had any opinions on kind of the healthy or unhealthy comparison. Shona, you've just popped your hand up.
I was just going to say, I very much in the past have always done that, especially when it comes to the academic side of what we do. So I haven't done an MA in community music or anything. I'm a musician, and I've found my way through that way, working in the community with music. And so I found very sometimes I still do. I find myself comparing and not using that, like, say, the language that other practitioners might use, kind of getting my head around that kind of stuff. But what I've realized is that we need a huge dynamic of people to represent and connect in different ways. And so I found through this process, through COVID and being online and chatting and going to these events, I think I found that, okay, my voice is important in this mix, and I don't necessarily need to use the lingo, the language, or haven't read that book and this, I haven't done that. And it's just like, recognizing that your voice and everyone's voice is important in these situations, because that's where the connection happens. So I would definitely agree with you, Liz, in terms of comparing ourselves to other people who we think might be like way ahead of us, or like, and it's just recognizing, that yourself, like, we are just as important in the mix.
Yeah, and it's almost stopping yourself, isn't it? And then going, no, I'm wrong. You know, we're all important
here.
Speaking
up,
yeah,
actually,
definitely.
And not being terrified of like not saying the right words or whatever.
100%. Steve, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm totally immune to those feelings, but over the years, I've become more immune just through having an attitude that there are so many different skills associated with being a musician or associated with music. And that's just one sphere of life. You know, there are so infinitely more skills associated with being alive or being in this world. You could never measure, even identify all the different skills there are. But if you carry the attitude with you that if you could somehow measure all these different skills, abilities, whatever, we would all come out with a very different profile, possibly with an equal score. And you know, and that's not just for human beings, that's across, you know, all of life, because bacteria have abilities that we don't, that we could never hope to have. So nobody need feel any better or any worse than anybody else, or any more skillful, any less skillful, except in certain areas. That's fair enough. And you can always strive to be better in a particular area that you want to be better in.
Yeah, and I think that's where the healthy comparison comes in, about taking that for inspiration, as opposed to putting yourself down with it and kind of beating yourself with a whip, you know, that you're not doing what that other person's doing. And I really like what you're saying about how we all have different skills. And I think that with things like mental health and well-being, for me personally, it can be kind of difficult to tell myself that I've got different abilities than someone else has. And that's a good thing, because if we were all the same, life would be very boring. So yeah, I really like that. Thank you, Steve. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in about that.
I just going to say, yeah, I agree with that. Of course, like comparing to yourself to other people is, I guess it's sort of, we can always pick and choose what things we like, certain styles or things. Go, yeah, I like that, I'm going to take that on board. But and also come with time as well. I think I've had it with sort of technology. I mean, in our breakout session, Gareth was saying, he said, I feel a bit more inspired to use some backing tracks, but at the moment he's happy sort of been doing it all with kind of instruments, and he said doing quite a bit of sort of copy and repeat, and I think I've had a dialogue with like recognizing maybe I want to invest more time into, for example, technology and tech setups, but not having a balance of thinking, well, what's realistic? I can't invest all this time and effort, money straight away in this, but sort of, you know, having a healthy kind of dialogue with it, of it's okay to kind of look at how other people do things and just picking and choosing.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say something and my brain's gone again. What is happening today? My brain is not playing ball.
I think your brain's doing wonderfully, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you. Just going off of all of this, I think that, I know we're in a bit of a smaller group now, but if we could share some kind of tips with each other about how to develop our practice more during this time, and how we're going to take that into the future. For example, a tip that I'd like to give everyone is after every session, think of one thing that you have learnt. Because I think it's very easy to go to a session and be like, well, what was the point of that? But sometimes you don't realize just how much you've learned as well, whether it's about a participant or about a different subject or about something not even related to music. Like, for example, I have a particular participant who loves the flute, and I always ask her, so come on, what other facts can you give me about the flute? And she's like there, and like half this stuff I had no idea existed, you know, but I'm learning with the participant, and I think that's something we were talking about earlier. But does anyone else have any tips to bring forward, maybe about the journey, or whatever?
Shona,
One that someone has been asking me or started introducing to me before starting a project last term was to ask yourself the question how you're feeling before you start a session. So like, actually, how am I feeling today? What is it like? What am I expecting? And how am I, like, especially the well-being side of things, just like, what can I take on today? Am I open to like messing up and just like throwing some, am I going to challenge myself? Am I up to like blah blah? Just really assessing where you're at is really useful, because it kind of gets you in the right place before a session. So I found that very useful for myself.
Yeah, and allowing yourself to make mistakes, I think, because it humanizes you, doesn't it? And I think participants actually really value mistakes. They value humanity, and I really like that. Thank you, Shona. Another tip I have, which Holly just reminded me of, is we talked about earlier, journey versus destination. And I'd just like to encourage everybody to really focus on the journey, because it's really easy to focus on the end goal. What's the destination? Where do we need to be in this amount of time? But the problem is particularly with COVID, it's very difficult to look into the future. None of us can do it. So it's very difficult to look at, this will be the destination that we will end up at. And I'd like to just encourage everyone to really focus on the journey and to focus on building stuff as time goes on, as opposed to focusing all on the end result. I'm aware that we're coming to past, but just before we finish, does anyone else have any closing thoughts?
I share one about a student of mine. I've got a Polish student. She wanted to learn some Polish folk songs, so I got a version of it for her, and then I tried to sing the lyrics in Polish. We had a great time. She was just falling about. I mean, I can speak some other languages, but I don't know how to pronounce Polish. She tried to teach me a few words. She said, "Yeah, all right." It's quite fun. But I mean, that was a good sort of way in with her, because she wasn't so engaged at that point.
Yeah. So finding something to kind of, an avenue almost that really engages them. Yeah, that's really good. I might try something like that.
And also a bit of fun as well, just enjoying it and talking about being present, just focusing on what's happening, and not always. Of course, we've all got things to think about in the future, but just I've been really trying to just sort of take things as they come, and just try and enjoy things in the moment, and being a time of experimentation, definitely.
I think it was that thing about the students can teach you something else. Well, I think I learn something from students every day, but it was just something was related, but it wasn't music. So I'm teaching her to play the piece. She's teaching me how to sing the lyrics in Polish. It was very fun.
Tricky language as well, Polish.
Wow, that sounds amazing. To be fair, now I really want to learn Polish. It sounds like a lot of fun the way you described it. So we're at past now. So Holly, I don't know whether you have any closing words you'd like to say to kind of finish everything.
Thank you so much for your time and for your contributions and for sharing lots of wonderful things with us. If you've booked on to we've got a couple more Music Leader Exchange events this month. So if you've booked onto one of those, we hope to look forward to seeing you then. If not, good luck with the rest of the Boris's road out of lockdown, and we hope to see you at other things in the future.